会場をアラスカとかにしなくて大丈夫ですか?
No, I'm pretty sure that's already been taken over by a deer girl. We open this final episode with the VTubers doing some last minute preparations for Haru's concert. The second geners had just recorded some cameos for it and had some time to talk and discuss what their initial debuts were like. As a result, it did give us some interesting introspection on how far they had come, as well as the influence Haru had had on them, which is going to be a bit of a running theme throughout this episode.
心配されるほどではなかったけどね。
What, did she show off some of her art? Later, she and her co-star Aoyuki went out for some yakiniku, and low-key, I love how she suddenly transitions to Shua after just a little sip of her happy juice. But yeah, these two yet again discussed how much they admired one another regardless of seniorities, which really, as we'll see by the end of this episode, are kind of pointless measurements when it comes to scaling their talents as VTubers. Interestingly though, Haru admitted to being initially more of a fan of Aoyuki before the episode 1 incident. I say initially because she was eventually won over by the Shua persona.
酒プラス下ネタプラス女好きみたいな人にはなりたくないってことですよね。
Well, she can't really turn to something that she already is.
はい、桜、ひかささんがエロい。ひかささんが
Nah, but seriously, she was likely won over when she realized that Shua wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment drunken outburst, but also just as much a part of this lady's personality alongside the Aoyuki side. Haru even seemed to try to confirm this when she asked her if there would be anything about her life that she wanted changed.
私は今、毎日が楽しくて仕方ない。これを自分から手放すなんてありえない。
Would you do it for a lifetime supply of Gotcha Zero? Yeah, that's what I thought. The day of the concert soon arrived, not just with a physical full house, but also a full world worth of potential watchers on YouTube, so yeah, no pressure you two. Okay, but seriously, the two, wholesomely enough, tried to break the ice with one another with a bunch of comments that, without context, would come off as really stupid, and even then, well... Still, the point was that they were trying to comfort one another, and in Haru's case, even literally lending a chest. Sure enough, Aoyuki could hear her heart beating rapidly, but according to her, it actually wasn't because of the uncountable amount of fans out there, but more because she is going to be on stage with her personal idol.
からかわれただけかもしれないけど、そんな雰囲気じゃなかった気がする。
With that, the show was on, and Haru somehow looked even more like Subaru Ozora than she already did. Also, it seemed like this concert was using some fairly advanced motion cap that would allow the VTubers to move around in three-dimensional holograms like Hatsune Miku. I think they use similar tech for Hololive concerts, but in this anime, they seem to use even more advanced stuff just by how much more they're able to move around the whole stage. Though, I do say seemed because maybe they are playing out much like those real-life concerts and don't even have this runway which would require some legit advanced tech, and instead, everyone at this concert, the audience and staff, were just filling in the blanks with their imagination. Which really has been a major theme of the series, the idea that people can get lost in literal illusions of these online personas in order to give everyone a little more freedom to be who they want to be, unrestrained by the confines of everyday life. And sure, while said personas of the VTubers are very much fake in many ways, the bonds that they form with each other and their fans will often be very real. In this case, it was clear to everyone what Haru's intentions were for Aoyuki as she invited her onto the stage.
今何開けたの？お水ですが？本当？
Girl, have you never heard of soda water? I mean, granted, I don't think it applies in this situation, but I still gotta ask. However, in spite of bringing her onto the stage, Haru made a surprise announcement that she's going to sing one more solo song before they did their closing duet number.
書いた曲で、おそらくもう歌うことは二度とないね。激レアだよ。
Well, as long as it's not yet another variation on Fua Fua Time. Well, it wouldn't really matter, as we didn't actually hear the song, and instead, Aoyuki just did my thing and did an overcomplicated analysis of it. And according to her, it was basically reinforcing what we just said about how VTubers work both as an outlet for their own creativity and as a means of connecting with others through what was likely a view into Haru's past alongside the other founding members of Livon. Originally, they were all just faces that blended in with the rest of the crowd, and we're kind of content with that, but after finding each other, they decided to create their own company so that they wouldn't be completely bound by the rest of Japan's very sterile and conformist society. That said, Instead, most of them seemed like they weren't planning on becoming VTubers and were just going to be like programmers and managers and such. And surprisingly, this also seemed to include Haru, who really didn't plan on becoming a VTuber, much less their company's first, and yet deep down she and their founding members knew that she had to become their number one.
彼女は初めて人前で本心を出すようになった。
However, that did also mean that she always kind of viewed the whole VTuber thing as a temp position that she'd fill until they could find some proper successors, which they did, so maybe it was time for her to step down as the forerunner of their company and just move to the back of the line.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, while this is still a very heartwarming moment where Haru revealed that she did indeed have some retirement plans in place until a certain someone's drunken rants changed that, we're still gonna get a pretty wacky twist by the end of this. Still, for now, it was a really good moment showing how Aoyuki's influence had really shaken up Livon's foundation, not just through how she inspired the four Jenners like Alice, but also showing how much she had brought everyone closer beyond just their computer screens that projected countless RGB pixels. Senpai, Kohai, none of that really mattered when all of them lived in the same world both IRL and in their virtual spaces. Spaces that Haru assured that she continued to reside in. And with that, the two VTubers sang their final song.
ダイヤモンドダスト!
クレイジーダイヤモンド!
What can I say? I love ruining moments. But yeah, slightly overused titles aside, this song, on top of being very catchy, also nicely symbolized the unity between the VTubers of Snow and Light, as Diamond Dust is basically like shinier snowflakes that ascend from the ground rather than descending from the sky. And of course, such pure ice could only shine as brightly as it does with the backing of a bright sunny day. With that, the concert ended very successfully, and the two continued their streams as normal, for the most part. Yeah, I guess to get a fresh start and also reposition herself as a Kohai, Haru graduated from VTubing, only to immediately re-enroll as the first 5th gener of their company.
That makes sense to me.
I mean, I get that she was trying to take more of a backseat while still technically being a VTuber, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like she's kind of trolling everyone too.
昨日の涙は今日の雪ってことか。下ネタは目です。
Quite literally every Yoko Hikasa interview ever.
私がこの試合に負けたら放送事故起こしてやるや!
And with that, this episode and series ended with a bunch of cameos from some actual VTubers, including of course Kizna, and what even the hell is going on here. This was a very well done conclusion to a surprisingly deep little slice of life about a bunch of virtual waifus. I mean, just from a philosophical perspective, this was a great exploration of some of the more positive aspects of what idol worship can lead to. And it was all expressed through some very creative animated sequences and of course some great music. But the only thing I could complain about was how we could have gotten a little bit more of the other VTubers, but really that's just a little nitpick. For a series that we only really started covering through a very spur-of-the-moment short review, this surprisingly became one of my anime of the year. Though really, considering how the story of this show started, maybe that was actually rather appropriate. When we find something you like, it's not a bad idea to look more into it, and maybe even join in whatever following it might have. That's how many VTubers in this show, and likely IRL, got their start. And there's a good reason for that. It's a profession that, for the most part, can promote positive influences on multiple fandoms and build fun and wholesome communities. Now, of course, I'm not saying it's perfect, like, at all, but at least it's better than the live-action adaptation. And yeah, as much of a crabby cynic as I will fully admit to being, I really came to appreciate this show's generally more positive perspective on the VTuber industry. Again, I know it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but hey, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief, especially when we get some hilarious slice of life with characters oozing personality, usually of the more deviant variety, which I might gel with a little too much really. But yeah, this final episode in particular really hit home with this theme of virtual idols having a positive influence on people. Be it Haru starting off as a reluctant forerunner of their company before discovering how much she could express herself through VTubing and realizing how much she was inspiring others, to one of those inspired by her being able to reciprocate those feelings and even encourage her to keep going even after she felt it was time to take a little bit more of a backseat, which she did the same way a guy who can never graduate from college does. regardless, it was still powerful and moving stuff that acted as a great topper to this really fun series. If I had to complain about anything, I guess I would have liked to see a little bit more of the other VTubers to really properly wrap things up. I mean, the only other characters that had speaking roles here were the second geners, who overall didn't have the biggest roles in the season, at least compared to the latter generations, but whatever. If the series gets a second season, we can always get more of them, and I really hope to see that. Because overall, this was a great finale to a real sleeper hit for me this season. Whatever idols you follow, though preferably of the virtual spaces, you'll likely be able to enjoy them, as long as you just crack open a cold one.
夢のあるお仕事らしいです。
Yeah, a certain long-running franchise is kind of left in the dust as of late.
悪の組織の優秀なブレーンであることとともに
I can think of one antagonist who does your job a little better.
これを使うと幸せなことしか起こらなくなります。でも9秒で終わります。
Funny, I thought they lasted a little longer than that. No real comment. I just kind of wanted to end this series with a little reminder of what real magical girls are like. That said, I still did really enjoy this final outing with the awkward pairing between a magical girl and her simping mortal enemy. The framing device of switching between their perspectives was clever, and even though they did reuse a few scenes, it didn't feel lazy as there was enough new context that felt warranted. The whole point was to just show this growing relationship between this main couple that's incredibly cute and charming. And really, that's probably the best way to describe the series. It's an overall simple concept that's executed very well, with some great animation at times, and a little fan service, which is always a nice bonus. As a result, I do think, in the long run, it was a little better to keep this whole series at half length, and not just because the manga remains incomplete due to the tragic passing of its author. At a shorter length, it just keeps things a lot more digestible and prevents it from becoming repetitive, and scenes that have more impact, like anything involving Hibana, land about as hard as her punches. But yeah, on that note, it still does also act as a great send-up to magical girl anime by celebrating some of its best elements like the transformations, epic battles, and of course, the fun relationships between the heroes and villains. Sure, not all of them are, nor should they be romantic, but regardless, we do like to see the fun back and forth between them, whether it's antagonistic or the polar opposite like here. On a bit of a side note, this is also kind of what I mean when I say it would have been nice if we had gotten at least some brief speaking roles from the rest of the VTuber Legend cast. But yeah, overall, this was a fun and entertaining series to cover. Probably nothing that I would have done a full-blown review series about, hence why it is secondary to these VTuber Legend reviews, but still, I think it is something I'll rewatch just as much thanks to its story length and, yeah, Hibana. Nothing much else to say other than this is a cute little romance that we can ship, unlike some others. Seriously, what are some people's problems? Thank you for watching, and maybe check out some of our next season of reviews that thankfully won't start immediately. They will start next week Wednesday with Aqua Trip and then Macular Lumiere on Friday. Both reviews will come out either late that day or the next. I try not to rush these things. Still, do look forward to them. Until then though, for now my friends, and oh, looks like the stream is about to start. Music to my ear.